Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MTT News of the Week. Hello, Chris. How's it going?
Hi, Rich. I'm not too bad. How are you?
Great. I'm wonderful. I'm very well. So, thank you for joining us. Everyone who's watching, and if you're watching this recorded later, please hit the like, subscribe, the notification bell, and comment. Please comment and tell us how we're doing and tell us your thoughts. We're going to be covering the news of the week, as you know. This week, things that happened for the last couple of days, as you can see by the title of the stream. Goodbye, Minister. That's a reference to Yes, Prime Minister or Yes, Minister, a TV show in the UK. It obviously has more relevance to Boris Johnson, who, of course, was forced to resign this week. We will be talking about that. That's the main part of our show, the second half. The main part will be discussions of that. Who's going to be potentially the replacement from the Conservative Party, the contenders, perhaps Rishi Sunak, and all sorts of other characters. We'll be talking about that and our thoughts on that. But other news that we will be mentioning before we get into that is, of course, the killing of Shinzo Abe, the former leader of Japan, as well as the fleeing of the Sri Lankan president after many occupations and big protests in the prime minister's house, the president's house, and all sorts of chaos in Sri Lanka. So we're going to be talking about that briefly. Biden is also visiting the Middle East, or specifically Israel right now, and later Saudi Arabia. We're mentioning that. There's lots of interesting things to talk about that in relation to Ukraine. And then two specific stories related to more so to the UK. An athlete called Mo Farah, revealed that he was kidnapped and trafficked and worked as a slave in London, which is pretty shocking. So we'll be mentioning that, as well as a BBC Panorama show, which should be airing tonight, which was already kind of been leaked and been discussed, the contents of which is the SAS killing innocent people in Afghanistan, quite a big number of them. And we'll also be talking about Australia in the same light, Australian SAS doing the same thing. Very interesting stuff to discuss there. And something lighthearted, I guess. Also, some interesting pictures came from the James Webb Telescope this week. We won't be talking too much about that, but take a look at those pictures. They're pretty cool. So, Chris, where do you want to start with the sort of other stuff? Should we start with Shinzo Abe, or would you like to go into Sri Lanka first? Where do you want to begin?
I feel like we should sort of jump into something a bit more light-hearted and jump straight into Boris.
Jump straight into Boris? You want to go straight into Boris? Okay, let's go straight to the main. Let's do it. Let's do Boris. Let's go straight. To be fair, I mean, I guess, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. So, if you're not... go ahead.
Obviously, because we're both British nationals, and
Sure.
probably a bit of excitement going by this, that we're finally seeing the back of him. I think for people living outside of Britain, they don't realise it's easy to compare him to Trump, but Boris is someone who's been in the public figure in Britain for a very long time, whether he's been active in politics or active in journalism or just a talking head on one of these comedy panel shows that they used to get him on, like not Mock the Week. What was the other one that they had on?
News of the World.
News of the World, and those type of shows. It was kind of a good sport, even though the jokes were against him, and you sort of just couldn't realize how deeply disliked he was by normal people. So I think,
Yes,
it's not just a normal resignation. This is somebody leaving politics who is greatly disdained by a large percentage of working people.
right. Definitely. I mean, I guess his argument would be that he had the first time ever, voters from the Labour Red Wall choosing to vote Conservative, having voted Labour for many years. But I think that was Brexit politics, a miscalculation on Brexit politics from the Labour Party. But yeah, definitely. I mean, there's huge sections of the country that, do not like this man for many reasons. I mean, he is the epitome of privilege. I mean, Etonian, who quotes, uses Latin and quotes Roman sort of expressions when he's talking, just normally. And I think, I mean, the kind of expression that I would like to use is that, of course, this is all because of what happened with him breaking his own rules and his own laws in relation to COVID. So that happened in February. So he's really just been in a time machine, a TARDIS, if you want to use a British reference. He's been in a TARDIS to the present, because breaking your own laws, breaking the law as a British Prime Minister, as a Prime Minister of any country, is usually a one-way ticket. And I think Boris Johnson has, was, I suppose, able to exploit the Ukrainian situation and give himself a 4-month, 5-month extension on the inevitable, which was this resignation should have happened a long time ago, to be honest. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting to point out as well that he's not been outed by opposition or even by an election. He's been outed by his party. These are Tories who have said, we can't justify this anymore. We can't defend this man. We've had enough. And it's not even out of principle. Ideologically, is in line with a lot of people. They just can't stand the lies anymore.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, this was also, you had the scandal of the drinking, right? And of course, I think one of the shocking images, I mean, we did cover this before in the past, but if you don't like the Queen or not, which I'm not a big fan myself, but to see at least for the national image, the Queen at her own husband's funeral, the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral, and having to not have anyone else there to support or take part in the ceremony and be alone, and then the day preceding and the day after that picture was taken, you had the Etonians, Boris Johnson, and the entire number 10 sort of staff and Conservatives getting absolutely hammered and drunk and having these illegal gatherings. It was that's a pretty shocking thing for the voters, at least particularly within the Conservative Party. I'm sure that there was a deep embarrassment by their own standards, because they would be fans of the Queen and would see, would not like to have seen that, and it's terrible for their PR.
I think that's where the line is. The Tories, many of them, they could happily toast and drink champagne and whiskey all night through 100 working class funerals,
right?
But to do this during Philip's funeral, to embarrass the Queen like that, the pictures that they put of the Queen on her own in the pews, it is a shocking image when you put that next to the picture of Boris partying,
raising the glass.
It truly embarrassing for them.
Absolutely.
Really nerve with a lot of monarchists.
Absolutely. I mean, at the same time, you then also had the other scandals. So you also had this thing about there was an article that the Times ran late on their digital version online, late to digital version, which they then pulled later, which talked about stuff that Carrie Simmons was allegedly doing to Boris Johnson in number 10, sexual acts. Then you got the whole Pincher thing, where Boris Johnson knew that there was a guy called Pincher who had been sexually groping parts of the other people in the party, some staff members and whatever. And the joke, yes, of course, so Pincher by name, Pincher by reputation, but that was obviously the nail in the coffin, right? This is that brought him down. So you had, the other senior guys, Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak, the big resignation. So yeah, I think just coming back to the specifics of how this happened, this wasn't a classic no vote of confidence, although that has potentially been tabled, I believe, by Labour. They're trying to put that through, but
get rid of him earlier.
Right. This was the staff, the cabinet, as well as lower ranking sort of junior members, just sort of basically bureaucrats, civil servants, backbenchers resigning. So this was something quite unusual, because of course he did survive in the 1922 commission, the 1922 committee. It already met, and he'd survived a vote within the party. So this was quite exceptional, actually, in that sense. It's almost a third way that was, I don't know, maybe not known before, as a way to get rid of a prime minister. That if you have a mass, actually a mutiny, if you think about it, a mutiny of the actual cabinets. So yes, this technically goes outside of the rules. So usually the 1922 committee will meet and have to change the rules, because he should not have been kicked out in this way, but because of the nature of what's happened, he's out because of just the sheer volume of mutiny.
Like he has officially resigned. You could make the argument, well, it shows that you can't really govern on your own, but because now it's not been tested, there's all the possibility in the world that Boris could have just ignored them and carried on and said, well, you haven't ousted me with a vote of no confidence. There's not an election coming up for a while. I can just stay here with all of you hating me, and we'll just see. It would be interesting to see if there would have actually been a parliamentary method for them to get rid of him, to actually get rid of him, and not him leaving because he's sort of reading the writing on the wall. Like what he's done is the sensible thing for anyone to do in a situation.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that Trump wouldn't have done it.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Trump could have had the entire Republican Party turn against him and would have said, I'm staying.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I guess that's one of the differences we could say between the two of them, right? Is that I think that perhaps Boris Johnson is a bit more of a profession, a career politician rather than Boris.
A trained politician.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing to say on this, I mean, we've got a speech here. I'm going to read it. It's not that long, actually. I do want to drag through some stuff. There's some silly. I mean, of course, he was a journalist. That was his former job, Boris Johnson. So he does know how to write stuff. I don't know how well, but he does know how to write something. So I'm just looking at the text here. I've got it up here from the Spectator.
He was the editor of the Spectator back in the day, wasn't he?
I don't know. Is it perhaps? If you know so, then I'll believe you. Yeah. So even just on the image here, straight away you've got a Union Jack and a Ukrainian flag is on his lapel. So if you read the whole speech of the text, he obviously mentions the Ukraine straight away. Talking about the people of Ukraine and how the UK is, going to help them, and this is a very important job to do. Because I'm actually, of course, now in the UK, and I've noticed how many Ukrainian flags there are, and it's, as we mentioned in previous episodes, it worries me a bit, because where are the Palestinian flags? Where are the Yemen flags? Where are the flags of all sorts of countries? Afghanistan, they are also or have been suffering, sort of under conflict for many years. The point I'm trying to make here is that Boris Johnson's, almost his, as we already said, the TARDIS, the thing that brought him to the president, that dragged him 4 months, was the Ukraine. So he had to very much try his best to make sure that narrative was kept as the central focus. But as we can see now, time has run out.
It was very good at sort of drilling in popularity from single issues at a time. Originally, he got in as the, if you remember, the quote was that got the oven ready deal of Brexit. He was Mr. Brexit. And then Brexit is now a distant memory.
Yes.
I miss Brexit sometimes.
Please bring back Brexit. Yeah, exactly.
Simpler times, happier times.
Yes.
But now, obviously, since Ukraine, he's jumped onto that with all force. Like the Ukrainians now crying about him, saying, "Oh, he was the first Western leader to come to us," and he very much wanted to draw that image of being sort of like a modern day Winston Churchill, hoping that he'd build the church after the war. They got rid of him because he was unpopular. But during the war, he was a popular wartime prime minister, not because he was exclusionary, because he was inclusionary. He brought in the Labour government into a wartime cabinet. But besides the point, Boris has done the complete opposite of what, in history's mind, made Churchill a good wartime prime minister. Boris is, he's just tried to, like you say, he's been living off borrowed time.
He has. I think, just want to jump in with some of the stuff from his speech that I noticed, is the fact that he used the word herd. The herd instinct is powerful. So let's try to find the exact wording here. So so of course it's painful not to be able to see through so many ideas and projects myself, but as we've seen at Westminster, the herd instinct is powerful, and when the herd moves, it moves. I mean, I don't think there's a mistake in using the word herd here, because I do believe that he's obviously referencing herd immunity and the herd narrative in relation to COVID that he
did do that. But obviously, I see this as, again, he's not accepting the decision that his own party have made is right, and it seems like he's just kicking them on the way out.
Right. I mean, I think that's also the other thing to mention on his legacy. So, what kind of prime minister was he? He did oversee Great Britain under, the pandemic, and overall, if you look at the statistics, they're all there. The death statistics, more than 150,000 dead. Yeah, not a great success.
Yeah.
A disaster, a failure. I mean, there was this thing about shaking hands back at the beginning of the pandemic, and people were told don't shake hands and please wear masks and stuff like this. And had a speech and he said, "I'm still shaking hands.
Yeah.
I'm still out here shaking hands. No need to say that. No need to say that. Apart from some sort of arrogance, who knows what it was, but he said it, and basically showing that he didn't understand or perhaps even care about the virus. And again, the herd immunity narrative, and the care homes that were ravaged through this idea of herd immunity, and the poor decisions that were made early on in the pandemic. The only thing I can say is that, of course, Great Britain did get the vaccine sooner than the rest of the EU, so perhaps we could say that that was a positive for Brexit, a positive for Boris, in a sort of marginal comparative sense. But yeah, I think that is the other stain overall, a stain on his legacy. Yeah.
I think I remember beginning of the pandemic, we locked down much later than everybody else did. I remember there being actually quite an outcry of people saying, "Why haven't we locked down when Italy and other European countries have all issued a lockdown and we haven't?" And it took us a long time to sort of react and catch up, because I think they obviously thought their silly ideas were going to work.
Yeah.
So is a legacy of dealing with pandemic is going to be greatly exaggerated. His legacy of Brexit was lied about from the start. He's left it with the state that we're now being accused by the EU of breaking international law due to the Northern Ireland Protocol.
Yes.
They still haven't been able to take their seat in the Irish Parliament yet after winning an election because of all this that's gone on, with the DUP refusing to take part in tarmac. So it's an absolute mess.
Right.
Everything that he's saying, "This is my legacy," was like, well, this is all shit.
Right.
Ukraine are still no better off thanks to your legacy. So
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of not dirty laundry. What's the expression we use here? Unfinished business. There's a mess. There's a mess left behind. I mean, of course, you've got financially, geopolitically. There's a huge mess. I mean, of course, you've still got the inflation going up now. You still have a half of a failed attempt to prop up the Ukrainian government, to arm and extend a war that does not need to be extended. Yeah. Yes, a losing war. So it is a mess. There's an absolute mess. I think that's where we should bring up to the candidates. So, I mean, who will take over? So right now, actually, according to the Financial Times, I'm going to share this right now. So, of course, this is still a very live and active story.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add this one here. We've got a thing from the Financial Times. So apparently it's down to 5 now, actually.
Oh, right.
In the time we've been preparing for this, actually, it went from 11 or whatever down to 8.
Yeah.
So according to the Financial Times, right now we're looking at 6 candidates remain in the race to be prime minister. And let's see, of course, just looking at the panel of wonderful people here. Actually, someone made a very funny joke. They said that we're living through the worst episode of Dragon's Den ever. Dragon's Den, if you don't know, is a TV show where businessmen grill,
I think everybody else will know it as Shark Tank.
Yeah, Shark Tank would be the American version. Exactly. Yeah. Dragon's Den, such a British name for it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so we've got it. I mean, Rishi Sunak and a couple other interesting folks, trusts and whatnot. So take a look here. So we've got, okay, don't know why this is in a strange format for me. 1 second. So Hunt is out. Jeremy Hunt, the former health secretary, whose name also rhymes with an insult.
It does.
Yes, yeah.
You can't seem to get away from that. I think every journalist seems to do it by accident now, don't they? Whenever it's like, this can't all be an accident that you're always saying that word.
Right. And Zahawi is also out. So this is obviously the first ballot of Conservative MPs after receiving fewer than 30 of required votes to progress to the second round. I don't know. Any thoughts on this one, Chris? I'm sure this is not
Zahawi,
really.
I thought was interesting because
Yes.
he was literally nobody who got appointed because the Chancellor quit. So he got made Chancellor. He was Chancellor for 2 days
Yes.
before telling Boris Johnson to quit. And that's what caused him to finally resign. And it just seems like that all the red flags of a career politician. Like we don't even know who you are. Like you've literally just
Yes.
turned up and said, I want to be Prime Minister because in your electorate's mind, because you betrayed Boris Johnson. Like these people aren't gonna like that. It
Yes.
seems like a bad move, but he's gone, so we'll never hear from him again. I can't imagine whoever takes over as Prime Minister is going to keep him as Chancellor. They'll probably replace him with somebody a bit more experienced.
Right. So I think that document that I've had up is now better. Can you see that there? That's better now. Here we go. All right. Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that he also. So he's the chancellor that was appointed, worked for 2 days, and then quit, and then was the last. The straw that broke the camel's back.
He's currently Chancellor.
Oh, he is currently chancellor. Okay, so this is Zahawi, right?
Awkward dynamic of he's the one who got hired and then told his boss to quit 2 days in.
Right. Okay, so yes, the final shortlist. So we've got 8 received the nominations. Okay, so 8 received the nominations required to be on the ballot when Conservative MPs began voting Wednesday. Several rounds are expected, with the shortlist due to be finalised by July 21. Of course, Jeremy Hunt and Nadine Zahawi were eliminated out of the first round. They did not get 30 votes. And here is a rundown of the leftovers after the first ballot. Okay, so Zahawi and Hunt are out. So here we've got Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt, Liz Truss, Kemi Badenoch, Tom Tugendhat, Suella Braverman. Okay, so these are the last characters on the list. So obviously the leading is Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt. But I'm a bit confused. I thought Sajid Javid was also on this.
He quit the race yesterday, I believe, after the commission said, "Oh, only run if you're not going to quit." He immediately quit. And he was like, "Oh, so you are always going to drop out dramatically and just waste everyone's time."
Yeah, okay, cool.
I suspect that he was probably some sort of unison race with Sunak to sort of help him.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Is that these guys, or women as well, are very careful about who they race against, because and you get jobs in the cabinet afterwards. There's also posturing. There's sort of camps, sort of unofficial camps with different sort of who works with who and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't, Tom Tugendhat I know is a former soldier, but Penny Mordaunt, I'm not familiar with her role. So if you look here, she's the international trade minister. Yes, she's also the favorite. Yeah, apparently she's the favorite. Who was second in the first round of voting by MPs, has overtaken Sunak as bookies' favorite. So even though Sunak is highest in the first round of voting, Penny Mordaunt is the bookies' favorite at the moment.
That's interesting because, to be honest, as soon as Sunak resigned, I immediately said, "That's it. He's going to be the next prime minister." Just he's been shown to be the most sort of competent out of all of them. He can speak well. He was the one that Boris put on a podium to explain things to us throughout the pandemic, and people could be familiar with his face and his mannerisms. The way he quit was literally pulled right out of Boris's playbook. What he's done to Boris is what Boris did to Theresa May: quit, complain against, and then campaign against.
Yes.
So even now, I'd be completely surprised if he doesn't win. He'd still be my projection to win.
Yes. I mean, so on a more simplistic level, of course, being the chancellor, he did release funds which went into people's bank accounts, or funds for certain things. So people.
It's a cheap win. Just giving taxes out.
Yes. Yeah. So apparently, this Penny Mordaunt, I've never actually heard of her, to be honest. She's got pro-Brexit credentials with social liberalism, and she was also in the Royal Navy. Okay, the 49ers low profile. That's why I guess they're putting at her as a good potential winner. But Liz Truss obviously is the current foreign secretary. I know that she had some embarrassing statements that she made during the failed negotiations before the breakout of the conflict in Ukraine, where a particular Russian city was named, and she said, "We'll never give it to you. We'll never give it to you." And what someone had to punch her in the sort of elbow her and kick her under the table and say, "It's already in Russia. It's already part of the country." But she's perhaps not the sharpest when it comes to geopolitics and stuff like this.
No, here's a good one that she liked to get a picture taken. So there was an interesting photo when she went just before the Ukraine crisis. She went to Russia, and in a fairly warm time, but she wanted to get her picture taken. I'm going to have to send you this on our group.
Oh, she wore. So okay. I'll grab this one. Yeah. So she wore this to Russia during winter.
This is how she decided to be photographed in Russia.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just put this up. Oh, this is in the summer. Sorry.
In the summer, which makes it even more ridiculous.
So here she is. Hold on, I'll grab this up for you. Yeah. So, so if you don't know, Moscow in the summer is extremely hot. 30 degrees, 25 degrees, all that stuff. Extremely hot. So this is Liz Truss in the summer, wearing, of course, a lovely, bear skin or something like that.
Yeah.
Thick hat and a
She
black.
obviously planned her outfit while still in London.
Yes. Oh, God.
It's amazing. There's a larger version of that photo, and the guy stood next to her is just wearing a shirt. Probably thinking, you must be absolutely boiling.
That's hilarious. Oh gosh. Okay, there we go. Lovely. So she likes a picture op. She likes a photo op. I mean, on the other ones here, I don't really want to take a look at some of their background. So we have a little bit of a background about them. I don't know if I see Rishi Sunak's work history. Let's take a look. Let's just see what we can find here. Because as we can see, we're speculating here, but okay, here we go. You couldn't have written it better than this. Sunak worked as an analyst for the investment bank Goldman Sachs between 2001 and 2004. He then worked for the hedge fund management firm, the Children's Investment Fund Management, becoming a partner in 2006. So I'm going to jump up here. This is just his Wikipedia page. We're just going to jump up to kind of see the kind of things, the kind of interests, financial or class interests that we're talking about here. Of course, he's still the Chancellor of the Exchequer, serving previously as the Chief Secretary to the Treasury from 2019 to 2020. Of course, a member of the Conservative Party, and he has been an MP since 2015 from Richmond, Yorkshire. But yeah, he's from Southampton originally, with Indian parents. He went to Winchester College. He read, of course, PPE, Philosophy of Politics and Economics at Oxford, and then an MBA from Stanford. Of course, he met his wife there. His wife is the daughter of an Indian billionaire. And then let's take a look what else here. Yeah, they are among the richest people in Britain. So this is one of the richest people in the country, with a combined fortune of £730 million as of 2022. After he graduated from Oxford, he worked for Goldman Sachs, as I already mentioned, and then a partner at a hedge firm, and then something else called Telema Partners. I don't know what that is. Yes, and then it goes on to his political culture, his political past, which, of course, member of parliament and Theresa May and Brexit and all sorts of things. But yes, literally one of the richest people in the country who worked for Goldman Sachs and is married to the daughter of an Indian billionaire. So, yes.
Another working class man of the soil.
A real working class man of the people, exactly. The kind of guy that knows the price of milk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've got a video, haven't we, of him bragging about it?
Yes. So a video came out, of Rishi Sunak. Let's just get it up. Talking about his upbringing, about all his he was apparently, this has been quite embarrassing because, of course, it shows. Let's see, tax avoidance. Oh, of course, yes. His family's also been. I mean, that's the other thing we've mentioned is that prior to the sort of Boris Johnson stuff going on right now, the taxes, there was a tax avoidance problem with his wife, who is, I believe, she has an American passport, and she didn't declare it, and something to do with taxes and avoiding taxes, and there was a bit of a another one, a bit of a controversy on that one. Let me just find it here. So we've got the Guardian, the Old Straight Blade here.
I have friends who are aristocrats.
1 second. Okay, here it comes. Okay, we go.
I have friends who are aristocrats. I have friends who are upper class. I have friends who are, working class, but not working class. But I mix and match.
Mix and match.
Yeah, that's all that goes. That's all you need to hear. I'm not working class, of course. Yeah, I have friends who are upper class. I have friends who are aristocrats. Yeah, that's a normal thing to say. Someone who's a good representative of the majority of people.
Yeah. I wonder what caused him to correct himself then. Like, I've got friends who are upper class. Was it friends who are working class? No, I don't. But did he realise that they aren't really his friends, that they're just his servants?
Yes,
business. He's not working class at all.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, was it sort of a bit of shame there? Sort of got friends who are working class. Of course, I'm not working class.
No,
never.
Wasn't your friend, but you had to pay him.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, the other characters in the race. I mean, there's quite a lot of them. I don't know if we want to look into each of them. Let's just see. Maybe let's look into the front. Let's at least look at the front runner. Perhaps there's Penny Mordaunt. I don't know much about her, so let's just put let's do a quick look here. So Penny Mordaunt. So actually Penelope. Full name, politician, of course. She's been the Minister of State for Trade Policy since 2021. Obviously, a member of Parliament and a Conservative, representing Portsmouth North since 2010. So she's been an MP for more or less 12 years. She's previously served as the Secretary of State for International Development between 2017 and 2019, and Secretary of State for Defence in 2019 under Theresa May's cabinet. So she's been around the block. She's been in a couple of cabinets. Let's take a look here. Of course, she was elected under the coalition era. Of course, the old Lib Con or Con Dem coalition from back in the day.
Lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Yes, that was. I mean, that was actually quite a long time ago.
David Cameron's broken Britain.
Yes, that was it, right? She served as Parliamentary Undersecretary of State for Decentralisation from 2014 to 2015. After the 2015 general election, Cameron promoted her to Minister of State for the Armed Forces, the first woman to hold the post. Mordaunt supported Brexit in the 2016 referendum. Following Theresa May's appointment as Prime Minister, she was appointed Minister of State for Disabled People, Work and Health. Okay. In 2017, following the resignation of Priti Patel, she was appointed Secretary of State for International Development. She also served as Minister for Women and Equalities. So, I mean, if you're looking at a portfolio base as a parliamentary portfolio, she does have quite a broad portfolio. Minister, you've got armed forces, disabled people, work and health. Of course, she's got the Brexit credentials and Minister for Women and Equalities. Okay, so at least parliamentarily speaking, she's given jobs that are a bit broader than Rishi Sunak, who's mainly dealt with just the Chancellery. In May 2019, Mordaunt was appointed Secretary of State for Defence, replacing Gavin Williamson, becoming the first woman to hold the post. I mean, I feel like, do you think that might be why she has been put as a frontrunner? Because she does have the defence background, at least parliamentarily speaking.
At this time, very potentially.
Yeah, because of course, with Ukraine, this would be why you would need to have someone who understands how defence works and that post works and the politics surrounding all of that.
And obviously, they'll be thinking about the election as well, where Rishi Sunak, obviously, he built up a lot of goodwill with the Conservative base during the pandemic. And he's a public face. A lot of them won't really know very deep into it to have an opinion of whether they like him or not. But sometimes that's enough. But with her, with the military side of it, are they planning on really sort of leaning into Ukraine in the election? Because I really don't know if that's going to win. I don't feel like the public will be voting in the next election, depending on who's strong against Russia and good for Ukraine. I don't think that's going to be a factor at all in people's thinking. Vote day.
Yes.
I might be wrong.
Yes. I mean, yeah, exactly. So I think that the inflation, the cost of living crisis, will.
That's going to be people's deciding factor.
Yeah, any party that can play that and focus on that will probably and make that the narrative. Will probably benefit better and have more support. I don't know how much longer people can keep waving a Ukrainian flag when the cost of living is going higher and higher. Yeah. I mean, I was looking at her background now. So she's the daughter of a former paratrooper. She's from Torquay, Devon. She has quite a. I mean, this early life and career is a bit more detailed than Rishi Sunak's. Nonetheless, her mother, of course, was a teacher too, but she's also a relative of Philip Snowden, the first Labour Chancellor of the Exchequer. So actually, her mother's side is Labour history. And she's also related to some other famous actress here. I don't know. This is a bit too much to go into. To be honest, I'm not going to go to all of it. She has a number of brothers. She went to a Catholic comprehensive school. She had a death in the family, and there's quite a lot of work here. I mean, in all fairness, she did work in a Johnson & Johnson factory and became a magician's assistant to Will Eiling, a magician. So she's a magician, a magician's assistant, apparently. But that's an interesting, unusual conservative background. Yes, then she studied philosophy at Reading and graduated in 1995. She was the first member of the family to attend university. So she does have, I guess, a less bourgeois background compared to Sunak. Yes, and it doesn't go. There's not much as well here. Yeah, not as.
What's interesting as well. Just before we go into the next person, I think it's interesting who isn't running, particularly Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Yes.
With all the resignations, Boris had two people left. And that was Priti Patel and Jacob Rees-Mogg, and neither of them are running, which I think is very interesting. And maybe it was they feel quite stigmatized about, can we really run when we've not even officially burnt our bridges with them? Like, we've never quit or criticized.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that just as a reply, I don't think that Jacob Rees-Mogg. I think the party has probably told him, and that he probably knows that he will never ever be able to run because he's completed the jokes about his nanny, about his So
They look like the monsters, don't they? Or the animal family put together.
Yeah, no, he is unelectable. I mean, he's so detached from ordinary people that he's unelectable. Which again, if you look at
who actually came out in support of him, who suggested that he should run, Johnny fucking Rotten. John Lydon came out suggesting that Jacob Rees-Mogg should run for him. So, oh my God, such a plastic punk at this stage. That
right.
Anything less of Johnny Rotten, like, my opinion of the man is completely gone.
I mean, I believe he was spotted with a Trump T-shirt or a Trump hat, wasn't he, or something
he was a Trump supporter. He voted for him both times because he's an American citizen now.
Yeah. So no, not a good punk. Yeah. All right. I mean, okay. So, did you say you wanted to go over some more of these potential? I mean, the other one you mentioned was you said there's a second one that surprised you. Sorry, remind me which one that was.
No, to be honest, I think we sort of through the sort of names that are of interest. I can't see Kimmy, Tom, or Sulla even surviving the next round.
Yeah.
Even by looking at if what they're doing, because you got to have 30 votes to survive the next round.
Yes.
The bottom now is on 32, then it's 37-40. So these people are most likely going to get eliminated in the next round of voting anyway.
Yeah. I mean, Penny is at 55 on the last vote. Rishi Sunak at 20, and Truss at, I think, 16, if I'm not mistaken. And the other guys are, they're less than 10, all of them. Kemi, Tom, Suella, Nadim, or Jeremy. But so it does seem to be a very strong horse on Penny, and then the second and third are very weak, actually, with Rishi and Liz. Which is quite interesting, because I don't think this was I mean, Penny does not seem to have been a big name in politics before this. It's obviously famous with important positions and important posts, but it's not a household name as far as I'm aware. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that would be our Boris discussion. I think we've covered pretty much what we've done. We're talking about COVID, talking about his legacy, talking about how he got here.
Yeah.
I think we can move on to the other stuff. The other news.
2 prime ministers left.
Right. So we still have Shinzo Abe. So obviously there was an assassination of Shinzo Abe. If you don't know, he was shot. He was in. One second, I've got this here. He was in Nara, so in Western Japan, at a political campaigning event, campaigning for his party, of course. And he's 67, and he was there and shot from behind in Nara while giving the speech on Friday. They obviously took him to hospital, tried to save him, and he died, which, yes, was indeed shocking. It's an ex-leader of a country. It's an assassination still in any respect, really. And yeah, there's a number of angles. Of course, people are talking about the fact that usually in Japan there are very few gun-related deaths because they have strict gun laws. Of course, compared to the US, where you have thousands of gun deaths every month. And yes, this is one part to it. I think some of the initial replies or initial sort of things that I've heard from this is how different countries responded. Particularly because of his legacy and what he'd done over the years. And for Chinese people and South or Korean people, Shinzo Abe quite famously refused to apologize and refused to give the sort of respect to comfort women who were forced to be prostitutes for Japanese soldiers during the war, for massacres and killings and all sorts of things in Japan, in China and in Korea. So that was a very big stain, rightly so, on his legacy. And that's actually what a lot of people have mentioned, that they don't feel too bothered about him being killed because he refused to apologize for horrendous things that definitely happened. So yeah, that's certainly one thing that I've heard about this. I don't know what you've heard, Chris.
So the other part of that, obviously going through his legacy that keeps getting brought up, is that he was the prime minister that the West are sort of framing it in a positive light, which I find weird, recanting Article 14 of the Japanese Constitution. So if you don't know, after World War II, where the American occupation force kept the emperor, despite saying we wouldn't keep him, but then realized that to get rid of him would make the country basically ungovernable because of his status and religion as well as government. So they sort of kept him, but castrated him effectively politically, and wrote a new constitution. And part of that constitution, Article 14, stated that Japan will never be able to use its military force outside of Japan again. Basically, to stop you ever being an empire. And that's all been well and good. They said that made Japan basically a pacifist country for the past 70 years. When ISIS were a thing, back at the beginning of the last decade, some Japanese journalists were executed in Syria, and that caused a big stir in Japan, and that caused a momentum for him to get rid of this part of the constitution to open the doorway for Japanese troops to enter the war on terror. So they saw that as a positive. I see that as a scary step to Japan's military being used by America in a future war against China, which is, without sounding like a conspiracy theorist, the reason why that was really recanted. Like, nobody's going to upheave your entire country to go and shoot basically a defeated jihadist movement in the other side of the world. Apart from like 3 journalists, you're going to change your entire structure. Nobody's going to do that. I don't believe that.
Yes.
It's about China. The enemy at the doorstep, as far as they're concerned. The other part of it, when he's saying about his legacy with the comfort stations in Korea, is his grandfather was part of the Empire of the Rising Sun. When Japan occupied part of China and set up the puppet government in Manchuria, using the old emperor from China as a puppet leader, the economic king was Shinzo Abe's granddad. He was the economic minister of Manchuria.
Right. My Manchukuo. Right.
He's not just a politician who's come out of nowhere, just another popular.
Yes.
This is part of a political dynasty.
Yes. I didn't know that he was related to that. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, coming back to the point you said about a number of journalists being killed and changing your entire constitutional arrangement in terms of defense, it does seem ridiculous. It does seem that the reason does not make sense. Because they still, I mean, despite having that in their constitution, they still do have special forces, limited, a cell, what's called a national defense force. So they could quite easily have gone and done operations, rescue operations, or some sort of special force operations to rescue and deal with that kind of very small incident. The capturing of citizens, one or two citizens. You don't need to change your entire constitution because 2 or 3 people were kidnapped. Yes, it does seem that was it doesn't match the choice.
The actual outcome, because they didn't even end up using troops in Syria. So that reason never happened.
Exactly.
I'd be very surprised if it did. Someone wants to correct me, but I'm 99% sure that it were not Japanese troops fighting in Syria.
I can't comment on anything. I'm not sure about that one, but yeah. I don't know about the political. I mean, of course, this thing about Japan not wanting to be as apologetic or as sort of forwardcoming about their role in World War II in relation to being allies of the Nazis, as well as all of the genocides and sort of terror things they did.
Compared to how Germany is, because Germany isn't like that.
Yes,
Germany,
exactly. Yes, Germany is extremely exactly
open and modest.
Right. Yeah, so this is no secret. I mean, this is quite a common thing. In fact, Zelensky posted, not Zelensky, but the Ukrainian government posted an image on Twitter a few weeks ago saying, we defeated the Nazis, we defeated the fascist forces. And they posted, the picture had, of course, Hitler, Mussolini, and the Emperor of Japan on the image. And they tweeted it out saying, we beat these guys in the past, we'll beat these invaders again. Speaking, of course, about the Russians. And they very quickly had to pull the image, apologize, and issue an apology on Twitter to the Japanese, because, of course, the Japanese, in line with what we just said, are not willing to, accept as much as the Italians or the Germans that, they were the axis of evil, those who were fighting on the side of the Nazis. So it's just quite a common. This is quite a common.
Ridiculous realms. Well, so to the old Japanese Empire flag,
Yes.
The Japanese Navy still use that as their battle flag. So when the South Asian nations are doing movements together with their ships, and a Japanese ship has to go to South Korea, it causes a massive stink, because the South Korean government are like, we're not letting you dock your battleship here, flying effectively an Asian swastika.
Yes. Yes.
They just refuse to acknowledge or admit that any wrongdoing, and that there's a reason why you don't have that flag anymore.
Yes, right. So yeah, again, this is it cuts deep to the
historical revisionism.
Post World War II Japan. It's a deep problem from the top to the bottom, I think. Yeah. I think our third minister, so of course, Goodbye Minister being the title of this episode, is of course the Sri Lankan president. So for weeks, for months, I should say, we've been talking about the situation, or mentioning the situation in Sri Lanka, but it's really coming to a head at the moment. You've had people storming, I believe it's the Prime Minister's house, jumping in the pool, watching TV at the palace, basically, and to the point that the president fled, left the country, went to the Maldives, and resigned. So yes, there's the Prime Minister's office. Yeah, it's the offices of the Prime Minister. But yeah, he of course has now resigned, which means that, as far as I understand, pardon.
So I think the president's fled, hasn't he? And now the Prime Minister's in charge, and he sent the army to.
Yes.
I watched the videos of the army trying to restore calm. They don't look like they're doing anything, and the army they don't look particularly motivated to do anything. I think they've not been paid in a long time.
Yeah.
I think it's very much of a case we'll stand here if we have to, but you tell us to start shooting these people, we're not going to do that.
Right.
It's very much got revolutionary potential.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we should probably do analysis on sort of on the Sri Lankan parties and the situation right now, because in terms of conditions, you do have the kind of stuff that if you had an organized vanguard movement able to sort of mobilize people with the right slogans and with the right political sort of objectives, people are mobilizing themselves right now because of the conditions, because of the situation. So that's happening right now. You're seeing that. That's really happening. You're talking about, yes, the most intense conditions economically and politically, and the kind of stuff that if you did have the right people, the right body, the right mind, you would have a revolution quite easily.
It's a shame because, as far as I'm aware of Sri Lanka, like I know it's got its fair share of jihadist parties and things like that, but they have a fair few leftist parties as well, including Maoist. I believe there's even a Juche party that historically was quite big. Juche really, outside of North Korea, only really did anything in thinking Sri Lanka and Nepal, I believe. But interestingly, they're absent from this. It seems to be, as Lenin would have said it, as quite a spontaneous,
right,
movement that is gonna sort of, as cynically as it seems, end up just bringing back sort of subtle reforms. I think it's gonna
right. Well, I think
one bad lot with another bad lot.
So some of the things I've seen from this is that you do have a situation where then a number of NGOs funded by the West, funded by CIA sort of groups and stuff like this, have been taking part in doing things. I mean, I wouldn't say that they've are running this or are the sort of only thing on the ground, but I know that there have been reports of these guys organizing certain events and organizing particular protests with particular slogans, and those slogans being anti-Chinese ones, to try and say we should have done more deals with the West and we should have not done deals with the Chinese. But the bottom line is the statistics, in terms of the debt, which is playing a role in the crisis. The majority of the debt is from the West, from the IMF, etc. Only 10% is Chinese. Very little of it is Chinese. So you are seeing, as you would expect, Western-backed groups trying their best to manipulate the situation in favor of a geopolitical rival, that is China.
I believe the president was actually in negotiations with Russia as of last week to try and bring some fuel in. I have no idea what he was intending on selling in exchange for the fuel, or whether it was going to just be on credit or some arrangement. Obviously, Sri Lanka isn't part of BRICS. You'd think that its biggest trading partner would logically be the huge country next to it, being India.
Yes.
There doesn't seem to have been a tremendous amount of relief coming. Like, I've not heard of any country really stepping up. When you say with NGOs, obviously, as I'm sure a lot of our viewers are, as soon as you hear that any country that's in crisis has been affected by NGOs,
yes,
that NGOs, non-government organizations, are always governmental organizations, just not the government of the country that's hosting them.
Exactly. Yes, yeah. So they get money from somewhere, and usually there's an international aid budget from some Western country, or just directly from an actual agency. Yeah, exactly. So I do think we should actually go more in depth into this one, because it's a really fascinating situation politically, economically, what's going on, and then also geopolitics playing into it.
What we're looking at now is just at the beginning of it. This is going to be something that we're going to see slowly develop.
Yeah.
And all the main players are going to be there. We are going to see a lot more Western interference. We're going to see some Chinese sort of pull in one direction, Russian pull in another direction, and it's going to be interesting. Interesting in the most pessimistic way possible. But it's going to be an interesting story to see unfold. I hope that it unfolds in a positive manner, and I really do. I just don't have much faith in it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that the problem with the situation, which is more spontaneous than well led for the masses, is far more powerful organizations which have very clear intentions and are organized and well funded are able to dictate and direct things towards their ends. They can play just like Ukraine 2014, basically. So I agree. We'll follow this one as it goes along, and we'll see where it goes. But I don't see a positive outcome right now for the people of Sri Lanka. Hopefully, I'm wrong, but yeah. I think the other two stories we want to talk about then before we finish, both of these also, pretty shocking. I think we'll talk about Mo Farah first. So Mo Farah is Olympic gold-winning long-distance runner, and he came out and said and revealed that Mo Farah was not his real name. It was something else. And at the age of 9, he was taken from Somaliland, which is in north of Somalia. His father had died in the Civil War, and his mother was struggling. So they were.
So this would have been after the collapse of the Marxist government,
right? Yes, exactly. Mangusto, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So his mother was then forced to send the kids to different places. He was given a phone number and a bunch of names of relatives in the UK. And when he arrived, that was torn up right in front of him, and he was told to say a different name. And he passed customs with this woman, who then took him to London. And he basically worked as a slave, and he was abused and, of course, never paid. And he washed dishes and looked after their kids and whatever. But he was a slave. He was living as a trafficked slave in London, which in the 20th century, never mind the 21st century, is crazy and quite shocking, and really at the top. You're talking about someone that he is a household name. You're talking about a very famous athlete in the country. So a pretty shocking story. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this one, Chris.
I think to be honest, I do think he's really brave for coming forward, because obviously he would have been scared to think that with a government like what we've got, what will they do to me? Like, he's been knighted under a fake name, effectively, a name that he knew was fake. So all thoughts must have been running through his mind. How are people going to receive this? I do hope that he becomes a champion of sort of slavery advocacy and bringing this to the people's forefront. I think a lot of people, when it comes to modern slavery, people have heard that mantra where people say there's more slaves now than there ever has been. And they just say, they don't really take time to really absorb what that means. Of when you think of slavery, most people will jump to black slavery in America, which was obviously absolutely huge numbers. But then before that, you have Egyptian numbers. It's Egypt, which again, huge numbers. To say that those are a drop in the water compared to what is existing right now, being used by some of the richest companies in the world, like Nestle and Nike and Adidas, it's a lot to get your head around. I remember a few years ago, Nestle made a commitment on their website to basically stop using slavery. And they've decided in the meantime that's too hard. So they've now replaced that promise with a promise to use sustainable goods. I guess that means that they're going to carry on using slaves, but as long as everything's organic, that's okay.
Yes.
But it boggles my mind that.
Yeah, right.
I think it is just people.
Yeah.
There isn't a big enough expose on it, and I think that needs to happen. I think people really need to. Reality of what modern slavery is.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you can have this happen in London, in the capital, then tells me, well, what's happening in the capitals of all sorts of other countries? What's happening in places where there are less people watching? If you go further and further afield, and I mean, you already hear stories about what happens to in the Congo with the basins of mining rare earth materials and stuff like this. It's really brought this spotlight onto a very, very important issue. So good job on Mo Farah for coming out and the confidence to do that. The last one.
Champion that a bit.
The last one is the SAS. So the killer. So let's just jump across here 1 second. There is a bit of, I mean, this story has, I mean, the BBC Panorama has released this documentary, which we will both probably watch tonight, and then, you know, talk about it perhaps next week. But this thing about the SAS killing different groups of people, innocent people, on night raids. So during the Afghanistan operations, the SAS and other special forces from Australia, as well as the US and elsewhere, would go to houses, compounds, with some sort of tip-off to go find, you know, whether it's a specific commander or a particular individual, and go there and obviously try and find them and most likely try and just kill them. But in the same time, when they arrived these places, they would often be, you know, innocent people. Obviously, in Afghanistan, people live in compounds, families, big groups of people live together, and there would always be other people there, and the SAS soldiers would just kill them, shoot them, and this is what's happened. And it's been quite a bombshell, to be honest, because the military, the former military chief, so the head of the army, back in 2010, he's said that he's calling for a thorough investigation of the SAS killings. It's a bit embarrassing because of the fact that the BBC Panorama program has come out. So the question is, you know, would you have done this had there not been a Panorama? Would you just have kept quiet about this had, you know, the BBC not made a documentary about it? That's the really sort of scary part of this, I think.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think
apart from
I think we both know the answer is no, they wouldn't have done. They've been forced to acknowledge this due to journalism. They've come out and said, I think Boris has said, oh, whenever we hear about crimes committed by the army, we'll do everything that we can to see that justice is served. And so, well, historically speaking, you've done the opposite of that, as recently as last year, where you've promised to end trials against soldiers convicted, accused of murder in Northern Ireland. So your actions don't match that. We saw last year or the year before, this basically same thing was happening in Australia with the Australian Secret Special Forces. It is something that's hard to control. War always does bring the worst out of it. All you need to see is, like, historically, even like the Red Army's behavior in Berlin after World War II. When people are feeling battered and have just gone through a horrible war, you can't expect them to be the best people they can. But what you can expect is that the systems of checks and balances to actually look. This report of these SAS men who were killing these people was handed to the head of the British Army, and the British Army general repressed it. They sat on the report because they didn't want it, and that was it. They were happy for this behaviour to carry on as long as it wasn't made public to embarrass them. That in where lies the problem.
Yeah, 100% right. I mean, the sort of elements of the investigation. So, as you said, there was investigations previously, but if you read the independent article we've just shared here, we've got up here, you'll see that even in those reports, they do mention the fact that there were elements. So you see as well, the report, the investigation was hampered by the investigators not being given access to information held by UK Special Forces headquarters. So, you know, if they're holding any information, you know, then it's not a full investigation. You know, so and bear in mind, the UK Special Forces headquarters is literally the unit. So you're saying we did an investigation on some troops. Well, yes, okay, where were these troops? They're special forces. Okay, their headquarters didn't give us all the information we asked for. Then it's not a full investigation. So, yeah, it's pretty. I mean, from what I recall, there was a particular story about, this was released also again from the BBC a few years ago, about a soldier who had gone into a compound and shot a bunch of teenagers and killed them. And his defense was that they had been running at him, charging him. Therefore, he reacted and you know, took self-defensive action and shot them because he wasn't sure if they were carrying grenades or whatever. But when the ballistics were done, the bullet holes in the wall were at about knee height, and the wounds, the fatal wounds on the teenagers were at chest height. So it would have been impossible for them to have been standing, which meant that they were sitting down, which means that they didn't charge him, that they were just sat in a circle or whatever when he entered the room. So fact that these things, we know some of these things shows that there's clearly a massive miscarriage of justice. And there's this particular line here about how they would go about this. And I know this story because we were shown, actually. I mean, the SAS came and did a recruitment drive to us, to our unit, to our infantry unit when I was in the army. And they showed us pictures of some dead guys, insurgents. And they had placed the rifle next to them. So you can see they have a rifle there. But the whole procedure as to how they proved, or sort of the proof of how this soldier or this person, this insurgent, was actually carrying this rifle. There was no way of proving. There was no, police investigation. There was no sort of thoroughness to it. It's just sort of they would turn up, do their stuff, kill people, and then a picture is taken where it shows, okay, here's the guy we killed. Look, there's the AK-47 next to him. He was carrying that. You could easily just place that there and take a picture. This is also quite common. I know U.S. police, American police,
5,000 miles away from home.
Yes.
When you're in a sandy little village with no internet connection,
right.
Who's going to be doing post-mortem? Who's going to be checking on us?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just me and my mate with a rifle.
Yeah. Yes.
And we're the ones who have been sent to this job.
Right.
That would be completely what's in your head. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Jarhead.
I have. Yes.
The whole premise of the film was basically these soldiers who missed the war. They arrived in Iraq after the war had happened. They kind of felt that the only job left was occupying, and it was almost drove to murder through boredom. And I think they would have been, we're getting shot at and maimed on IEDs when we're meant to be just on routine marches. We've missed the actual exciting bit of riding in helicopters chasing Taliban out in 2001. Now we've got this horrible job. It will completely mess with the mind. And
absolutely, yeah.
We shouldn't be trying to make imperialism nicer for them or easier for them.
No, right, yeah. I think that's also the original sin is that, so it's all well and good having professional soldiers and rules of engagement, but as you mentioned, so war is a very stressful, terrifying, and also all of the culture around it is about, I mean, you're literally with guns, so to make people be able to do that job, there's always deep problems with the psychology of it anyway. So the original sin is just you shouldn't be having people being sent to foreign countries to kill each other or to kill people. That should be the original. That is the original sin.
Yeah. That Frankie Boyle joke where when the Americans go to bomb a country, they bomb the country, then 20 years later they come back to make a film about how bombing that country made their soldiers feel sad.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I know that one. That's a very good quote. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think there'll be more to come from this one. I think because BBC Panorama has done something about this one. The army, the chief of defense they have to do a big public inquiry and investigation, which probably still won't actually change anything.
No.
I doubt any justice would come from it, but they have to now deal with the big stink. So that's probably what will happen. I don't see a great sort of change in how special forces get to do what they do. But yeah, I think we are actually done for this week. So far, covered everything. We will be back again next week for the same topics to talk about it. If you have any other comments as to what we said tonight, if you want us to talk about a specific thing as well, something a particular aspect of whatever we've discussed tonight, or something that we haven't discussed at all, please comment and like and share and subscribe, and we will take a look and perhaps do some deep dives that you've requested. So yeah, great. Thanks a lot for speaking to you, Chris. It was awesome. Great stuff.
Great to see you. Speaking to you again, Rich.
Yeah, no, I'll speak to you next week. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.